Hey there, everybody, and welcome to a new series. I'm Zach Burley here with War Game Central. I've done something like this before with the physical game, but I'm going to try something out with Vassal now. Big shout out to Patrick's Tactics and Tutorials, who has done extensive coverage on great campaigns of the American Civil War. And I was running a previous series on this particular game, but I just didn't have the space or the time for it, so I had to end it. But watching his videos made me realize that Vassal is actually amazing. I've tried it before, and it's so hard for me not to physically get out the game. But when I don't have the time to do it, I just streamed through 3 easy turns today, and it was incredible how much easier it makes playing the game than having the physical copy up, given the time and space I have right now. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to play it on Vassal, but I'm going to run through the log with you instead of playing it live, probably. So I'll go ahead and get out of your way and show you exactly what I mean. What I've got here is the map set up for the campaign scenario. So scenario number 9, which is the whole thing. What you're looking at here is a slightly tilted map. North is actually over here in the corner, and this is kind of tilted a little bit, but still it is Tennessee in 1864. Towards the end of the war, John Bell Hood has taken over the Army duties here and is marching on Nashville in hopes of dislodging the Union position and otherwise causing havoc in a war that is very quickly deteriorating against the Confederacy. So I've got the vlog already done for the first 3 turns, so I'm going to just give you a brief overview and then jump right into the action. So most of what's going to happen in this scenario is going to be right down here at the beginning. There'll be a clash likely around Columbia. Then there will be this long, long journey between Columbia and Franklin. There will likely be combat that involves the defense of Franklin or some sort of wrangling over Franklin. And then another long journey to Nashville, where there will, for the Confederates' hope, there will actually be a fight. And then there's always this little conundrum with Murfreesboro, exactly how it will factor in. So auto victory for the Confederates is getting into Nashville. Very easy. If not, it'll come down to a point system that is based off of usually these little blue circles. I'll zoom in more. You'll be able to see a little bit better. There are blue circles around some of these spaces that you can hold as the Confederates and gain points throughout the game. But the objective is to try and get that auto victory because it's pretty difficult to do otherwise. So let's zoom in and show you a little bit of what's going on. The primary forces are going to be over here on this left-hand side of the map to start with. This is Schofield and Stanley's 4th Corps, who are entering down here. Stacked with Stanley are these wagon trains, which is the bane of the Union existence, these slow-moving, cumbersome trains. They are converging on Columbia with the task of crossing over the Duck River and getting to safety towards Nashville. To spoil those plans, at the moment, is Forrest Cavalry, who are attempting to run in, raid in, and otherwise gum up the works and slow down this train. There will be some units that will come in, some more Confederate cav on turn 2. These units here are not even eligible to move on turn 1. Turn 1 is usually just a formality, kind of like a little skirmish, but it's pretty low key. And then Confederate reinforcements will arrive over on this side of the map and will stream in, and Union reinforcements will come in shortly thereafter. So I can go ahead and start pressing play a little bit here and just see what we've gotten. The Union immediately jump out with a very nice roll of 5+1 because of Schofield's rating, and get to move 6 with their opening activation. If you're wanting to learn about this game, this is not the place to do it. I might briefly go over some stuff, but I've already done a little bit of a video where that's in there, and then Patrick's Tactics and Tutorials. Just search that, and you'll find great stuff on the great campaigns of the Civil War. This is purely like it's almost like an AAR, except we're going through it, kind of partially the way through. So Schofield jumps right out, and then the Confederates are going to respond by activating Forrest. And his units will begin entering play, and they have 4 movement points remaining here. So they do a normal attack against Capron, and I'll zoom in a little bit more here, against Capron here in Mount Pleasant. So they cannot cav retreat because it's another cav unit. Usually the cavs can just kind of run away and slow down infantry units. But because it's cavalry, he can't do that. So it's a +2 for tactics, a +1 for the force ratio, which gives the Confederates a +3. That'll give them a 5 overall with their roll of 2. And then the Union rolled a 2 themselves, a +3 result, which will give both sides demoralization, but importantly, a result of retreat for the Union. So both sides are going to become the maximum amount of exhausted. They have full fatigue. Both will become disorganized, and then the Union cavalry will have to retreat 2 spaces. Then the other unit is going to make its move and kind of take up this southerly route. Had a very large role. They had lots of movement points to use. And then it was back to the Union, who then looks like probably activates Schofield again and continue him up this Columbia Pike. There's a pretty sizable unit here of 11. You'll see throughout this the Union vastly outnumber the Confederates in just about all their units. And even when they don't, they're pretty much just even. So Schofield's going to scurry his way up towards Columbia. Confederates win this next roll, and they're going to get 9 movement points here. But sadly, that Confederate cav unit did an extended march roll, so he was already exhausted. Was already had a lot of fatigue, and they try to keep going, and the unit basically just falls apart due to exhaustion. So that extended march roll wipes that cav unit off the board, and we will see the repercussions of that very soon. So that doesn't affect any victory conditions. There are victory points given for strength point losses. So the Confederates will, or the Union will gain 3 victory points for every Confederate strength point loss. So basically, every time someone is lost in battle, they will gain 3 victory points. The Confederates will gain 2 when a Union manpower point is lost. So you can see there's a slight advantage towards the Union. They can afford to lose more units than the Confederates can. So already we've got a Confederate pass here. It's not too uncommon because it's not many pieces on the board. So we've jumped over here to Franklin, which is on the east or the north side of the map technically. So we were over here on this side, and now Wilson with his Cav Corps is going to activate, and they are going to run down the pike towards Columbia to reinforce. The Union win again on the initiative, and here comes Wilson again, just chugging down the Franklin Pike into a very good spot. They win again, but the U.S. and the Confederates both pass here. Now, there's just very few units that you can actually activate on turn 1. So here at the end of turn 1, Schofield has started to maneuver his way up to Columbia. Capron has been repulsed at Mount Pleasant. Forrest, though, still his unit is fully exhausted, and he lost a contingent of his corps entirely. So not in the best place, and that will come back to bite him. So that's the end of the turn. We'll go on to turn 2 now. Union reinforcements are nothing, and the Confederate reinforcements will bring in the very first part of Lee's corps, which is going to be Johnson over here, who enters on this side of the map, where most of the Confederate reinforcements will enter. So that brings in Lee and Johnson. Very first initiative, we'll see the Confederates win. 7 movement points for Forrest, who is going to run around and cross the Big Bigby Creek to try and get behind Capron. And basically what he's doing here is he did not want to attack across this creek. The east fork of the Big Bigby Creek did not want to attack here, so he's just repositioning himself on a big flanking maneuver to try and hit Capron in the rear. So next initiative comes in, and this will be Capron, who will get to do a move out. He succeeds in his extended march roll, and he's just going to get the heck out of Dodge and say, I do not want to lose this manpower point in a fight and lose this cav unit so very early. So Confederates win the next initiative. So we're going to move down to the southern end of the map here now, where things have changed a little bit. Back at the very beginning, Linville Station in Linville, Stanley's Corps, the 4th Corps, is now available to be activated with the wagon train. That also releases Hatch and his cavalry contingent, and then the rest of the Confederate cavalry under Jackson and Buford. So Bell is going to activate via Buford here. You can see Bell right there under Buford, he is going to be activated, and he is going to enter the fray in an attempt to smash into Hatch and hopefully dislodge. So they go for the immediate next initiative. They successfully get it, and they're going to try to assault with Buford. So Buford's going to try an assault Hatch here to dislodge him and open a path down to Stanley. So this area will be open. They can get onto the Columbia Pike and slow things down here. So that's the objective here. So he rolls for the assault, and it is successful. So they'll get to do the attack roll, which is going to come off as a Confederate 5, a Union 1, a +4 result for the Confederacy, which is pretty darn good. It's just a fatigue and an advance, FA, and the Union's going to get a disorganized and a rout, big R. So that will fully exhaust Hatch and Kuhn, and the two of them will be forced down towards Linville Station, which is where they reside. The Confederates can then advance in afterwards, which they chose not to do. They win the initiative again, 1-1. Ties are won by the Confederates, and Buford is going to activate Crossland, who is back in this stack. So 3 spaces out he can activate. He activates Crossland in this stack and then transfers to Crossland. That's something you can choose to do at the beginning. So Crossland will come out. I believe he took a disorganization there. He did from his extended march roll. You have to roll, and if you get a 6, there's modifiers. You'll become disorganized, which goes from full strength to less than full strength. It's not quite like a third, but it's somewhere around there. So that activates Buford, and he is going to slide on down into a position of possibility of raiding along this Columbia Pike here. So he's kind of straddling this area. Another tie on the initiative roll. There were a ton of these. Confederates win it. Jackson this time is going to activate the entirety of his command, and they will get 6 movement points, which is not the greatest for cavalry, but it's still something. He succeeds in his exhaustion roll, extended march roll, as does Ross, and the two of them will make their way into a position to, once again, hit this Columbia Pike and slow down these wagon trains as much as possible until the Confederate infantry can get in position to truly whack them. The cavalry can do it, but the strengths are pretty even and it doesn't come out great. Another tie on initiative, which is going to activate the Confederates' 6 points of movement for Lee and Johnson, and he'll motor his way right on down into Mount Pleasant, which was the site of that cavalry skirmish earlier. Union finally back in with their own initiative success. They're going to activate Stanley, who's going to get Wagner and Whitaker. So he's just activating the 2 infantry divisions here. I think they're divisions at the beginning, at the front, the head of this wagon train line. So the 2 of them are going to activate and try and clear out some of this cavalry. They get 3 movement points, which is not ideal. Stanley transfers back to Whitaker, and Wagner will just run down the road, followed very closely by Whitaker. So they're going to go down there and try and bust open this area around the cotton gin. They know that Bell can't move anymore. He's fully fatigued, so he's not going to threaten this at all. And Ross could come back down, but risk they're willing to take, basically. Confederates, next initiative, 10 movement points for Jackson as he makes his exhaustion roll. Extended march roll, I should say. He's going to take up a place a little bit further down the road, so they're just kind of staging these roadblocks along the Columbia Pike. Very standard, good position. The only thing that's unfortunate here is that they are reduced strength here with Buford and Crossland, and then Armstrong is on 2, which is a very good size ratio that you're going to get for your modifiers. Union again. So Stanley's going to activate Wagner, Whitaker, and then the first of the 3 wagon trains, Wagon Train A. Once again, it's within his command radius of 3. So the 3 of them are going to activate, and they're going to get 5 movement points, which is pretty good. So Stanley's going to transfer backwards to Wagon Train A, which will keep him a little bit closer to the rest of this force so he can kind of get as many of them as he can with 1 activation. Wagner's going to go up and run into Buford, and Buford's going to say, I'm out of here. With just half a strength point, though, he's going to get really bad modifiers to his roll to reduce. So basically, when a cavalry is in the way of a infantry unit, they can cav retreat become disorganized, exhaust, they'll take fatigue, and then they'll run away. And in that process, they could reduce the movement of the unit opposing them. So here, with only half a strength point, it's just not enough bodies to slow down Wagner's column, and so there will be no effect here, and Buford will be forced to run away. Wagner will continue his march down the Columbia Pike, and he is just like a snowplow right down the middle of this thing. Snow will come in later, trust me, and they're going to try and cav retreat again. Just, it's not a good fight to have here. 2 against 11. That's the big number right there on the left is the strength of the unit. So it's 2 for Armstrong against 11 of Wagner. It's just not a fight worth having, especially when they only have 1 more movement point remaining. So they will cav retreat, a modified 3. Because they are a large force, they add to their roll of 1, and so they actually will reduce Wagner's movement points by 1, and will keep him from moving any further. But it will force Jackson, crucially, off the road and away from the Columbia Pike. The rest of these guys are going to activate here. Whitaker's going to get off the road and kind of screen to the north in order to free up space for the column behind him. So that will then leave Stanley and Wagon A to move ahead, and that will bring them very close up behind Wagner. So that is another initiative won by the Union, and that will activate Wagon Train B on its own. They get a very fortunate roll of 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, which brings them right up behind. So they're keeping this very conscientious line, getting everyone activated at once, because otherwise you'll get real spread out. Union again winning another activation. They're moving Wood this time. Wood is going to, with a roll of 2, very poor roll, is just going to get off the road. So he's going to start down here, he's going to come up and then over off the pike in order to get out of the wagon trains away. A roll of 2, very poor, but you run the risk. Another Union initiative win, and they're going to keep this rolling. They're just going to move Wagon Train C with a roll of 4. That's going to keep them within the range of Stanley. So now Stanley can activate Whitaker, he can activate Wagner, he can activate Wagon Trains A, B, and C. They're all within his command radius. So they've got a really nice setup here on the road. A little bit spread out, but not too vulnerable. Ross is going to have a hard time making it back around if he decides to break out. Another win, Stanley is going to activate Whitaker and Wagner, so they're going to go on to 3 exhaustion, which means they'll have to make a check for extended march. But they're going to get the full 7 movement points, which is incredible. Thankfully, Wagner does not have any problem with his extended march roll, and Wagner is going to continue this advance. Notice how Stanley did not transfer to Wagner or Whitaker. They're not worried about getting in a fight right now. So Stanley's going to try and stay back and maintain this command radius where he can activate all the wagon trains at once. So Wagner has run ahead and run into Buford. 5 movement points remaining. Unfortunately, once again, they rolled a 4, which is modified down by 4 because of the size of their force. It's very small with only half a movement point, and it will not reduce him at all. So he'll skedaddle away across the Little Bigby Creek, and they have fully repulsed the Confederate contingent from the Columbia Pike. Wagner continues his run down the road and then steps around Schofield in order to free up the space behind him. They're still moving down here. Whitaker up first. He's got Ross in his sights. Ross will cav retreat. He does manage to reduce Whitaker by 1 movement point, and then he's forced to head into the woods and get the heck away. And it's pretty much put him out of commission as far as doing anything useful. So he's got 1 less movement point, Whitaker, but he doesn't care. He's just going to make his way right down the road and find himself up with Schofield. So already you're starting to see here really successful opening from the Union. They have managed to clear the road of Union cav. Confederate cav. These 2 are fully fatigued, so they're not going to be able to move. So they can work their way up here. This battering ram that they've managed to form has been very successful. And they're already almost to Columbia with sizable numbers before the Confederates have really even threatened the area, which is great to see because if the Confederates beat you to Columbia, it gets really messy trying to make your way across the Duck River. So that doesn't look like it's going to be a problem for them. The Confederates win this initiative, and that will send their next unit into play, which is Lee. Lee is going to extradite himself from Mount Pleasant and continue his charge towards Columbia with renewed urgency, because he realizes he's hearing reports from the scattered amounts of cavalry that are returning to Mount Pleasant that the Union is moving with haste. And so he has gotten he and his division, his command in gear, heading that way. Union win this next activation, and Stanley is going to activate all 3 of the wagon trains down here. Once again, they're all in his command radius, and he says, full steam ahead, boys. Unfortunately, they only get 2 movement points, which is, something that happens quite a lot with these wagon trains. But they'll all just slowly work their way up the Columbia Pike. They're now at 2 of 4 fatigue. Now there's 1, 2, 3, and 4. When you get to 3, you become exhausted for the next day, which just means it's harder to move. So they're pretty content with that. They're not feeling too bad about where they're at, especially since reinforcements are variable. They're not guaranteed to come in, so they may get lucky. Confederates win this next initiative. That's going to call in Lee once again. So Lee is going to full fatigue. He's saying, I've got to get down there. He has really gotten some dust kicked up after a very poor roll that moved him very little. He is full steam ahead, trying to get to Columbia to cause some sort of issue. And his real goal here is to make it to Little Bigby Creek. He wants to make it to this side here so that Schofield, who has not moved yet today, does not have time to make it across the Little Bigby Creek here, and keep him from using this favorable terrain. So he is going to make it there with just enough movement and sit, so in case there is an offensive action out of Columbia from somebody, he'll at least have some good defensive terrain, because right now he just doesn't have the strength. He's on 5. It's a unit of 7 that is reduced to 5 because they are disorganized. The previous roll that he just made on his extended march roll failed. So basically they're continuing to march. Lee is pushing them as hard as they can, and men are falling out left and right. And they're reducing his effective strength. So for the moment, he is stuck. He can't move anymore. He's fully fatigued and is only at 5 strength, whereas Schofield and Cox ahead of him with the 23rd Corps are at 11 strength. Wagner has 11 strength. Whitaker has 6. So he's vastly outgunned, and he does not want to leave himself in a bad situation out here in this corridor between the Bigby Creek and the Duck River. He wants to get some positive terrain for himself. So that's his objective there. Confederates win again. This will activate Forrest, who gets a whopping 12 movement points. And now watch this. This is a little bit interesting from the Confederates of what they decide to do here. He is going to make his way down the Hampshire Park and then cross over the Duck River, the toll house. So Duck River Station Bridge, he is going to make his way over and then come right face to face with Wilson, who has made his way in from further north. So he is just abutting Wilson here. He's not going to start a combat, I don't believe, this first time. He's not. But he's just going to try and sit here to prevent Wilson from getting away, from Wilson crossing over the Duck River. Forrest says, I can't really get around to this south side, so I'm just going to try and slow the other ones that are coming up. He also wants to sit on this railroad because over here in Nashville, there's a unit, Moore, who can just use the railroad and go all the way into Columbia immediately. So he wants to sit on that railroad and keep him north of the Duck River. So that's his motivation here. He's got a +1 always on the other cav leaders for the Union. 3, that number right there, right of his picture, is his leader quality, basically. And it's 1 better than Wilson. So he knows he's got that advantage on him. So he wants to clog things up and possibly assault on the next turn. But he loses the initiative here. The Union will win it, and they are going to activate Schofield, who gets 7 movement points. A roll of 6, +1 for Schofield. It's the max you can get. So you've already started to see the Union's getting some very positive die rolls. Schofield's going to move. He's going to enter Columbia, cross over the Duck River, and then enter the fray. He's heard the reports of Forrest crossing the Duck River. He was spotted from Columbia, and he has responded immediately. His objective is to get across the Duck River. He doesn't care if he's the first one to do it or not. You don't want to send the infantry way out ahead and then have the trains behind. You want to use them to screen, but he says we've got to get a hold of Forrest before he causes damage to the rear of our line. So Schofield will come over. He's still got movement points remaining, so that's going to force Forrest into a cavalry retreat. He is able to reduce Schofield's movement by 1, and that'll send him tailing off to the west around Bristow and to relative no man's land on the north side of the Duck River still. And what's important about the Duck River is geography. It's beautifully done on this map, but it's so important because the only areas to cross the Duck River really are east of Columbia, here in Columbia, the toll house, and then there are some fords a little bit further down. But west of Columbia, there's nothing until you get to Williamsport over here. And the Union have 2 fortified regiments or brigades of Indiana troops who are fortified on the river. So you're not going to get across there with cav. So it's very important that Forrest has been pushed off this way so that he is kind of stranded. He can't just cross this river anywhere around here. So geography is very important. Confederates back. They decide to pass. Still, they have very few units, and basically all of them are full fatigue. In fact, I think all of them are full fatigue. So they've given it everything. They've pushed as hard as they can, fought as much as they could. It's just not been enough. So the Union will then activate more back in Nashville, who can just, like I said, trail straight down this railroad, and he's going to pop into Columbia here for 2 fatigue, which is super good. So that was the whole consequence of Schofield coming over here. Had Schofield not, or had Schofield failed into this lodge forest, had Forrest stood, Moore would not have been able to reinforce here in Columbia. So very important. Union win the next one, and they are going to activate Wood down here, who will make his way up the railroad, the Central Alabama Railroad, instead of the Columbia Pike. He's going to leave plenty of space over there. It's not great to be on this side of the road. It's a very favorable 6, by the way, because it can't really screen. There's no Confederates down here, but it's a straight path, and the roads up here are horrid. So it's not a bad place to be. Confederates again, but they're going to pass. They're going to pass the rest of the way out of this turn. So Waters now is going to make his way up. He's a very small unit, only gets 2 movement, only has 2 strength, but a unit is a unit. Waters will continue his way up, and then off the pike, he is going to be a screening force on the left-hand side of the Union wagon train line, since the cav has kind of gone up to engage. Croxton now making his way around. He's going to sit on the Elk Ridge and just continue this little defense. And this is a really good setup from the Union, because Stanley is able to activate everyone inside of here. He can't activate Croxton because he's cav, but he can activate everybody else here. And then, if you look, Bell cannot make an attack around the south, because if he does, he's going to get stuck in a zone of control, zone of influence down here. He can't make it to this wagon train. He can't make it in through here to this wagon train. He can't make it into this wagon train from this side. So they have fully put a shell around these wagon trains. Now, of course, they can hit the front of this wagon train. There is one there, but Stanley's there, so it's going to give them a positive modifier. And against these cav units, there's just not enough to really trouble them. They could try, and if they deal a decisive blow, it really alters things, but otherwise, they're probably really not going to be troubled. So it's a really good setup from the Union here. The best I've ever seen from my plays. Other people have done it better, but I have not seen it come out this well. So Confederates pass once again, and the Union will now get to move Wilson with a full 10 movement points. A really nice amount. And that's just going to send him to Lee, to front against Lee. And Confederates pass. The Union get another 6. I mean, look at that. A 6 is going to give him 7. So that's 2 activations in a row. Schofield has got it in him today. He's got the fire under him. He rolls another 7, 2 consecutive 7s. And this is going to send him right along to face off with Lee. So he's already dispatched Forrest. He's got that fire under him, and he is facing off with Lee across the Little Bigby Creek. He's got a nice little massed force here, and he's staring down Johnson's forces. Once again, the Confederates will pass. The Union will activate Wilson's Cav, and that will, with 8 movement points, send them on a run around Lee and Buford. And you may recognize what they're trying to do here. They are trying to sit on the flanks of Lee. He's going to try and get around the backside of Buford, blow Buford out of the way. They've got 1 strength against Buford's half a strength. So they're going to try and get back here, blow Buford out of the way, and then get a full flank on Lee, which would be really nice. I actually don't think it's possible for them to get a full flank because you have to have at least a fourth of the strength of the unit that you're attempting to flank, and so even at 5-1, it's not enough. So I think I realized this later, but at the moment I didn't. It was the intention, but it's still good practice. Stewart over here will get to move, a relatively small matter, but he'll get 2 shots at it because the Confederates are still passing, and then both sides pass, and that ends turn 2. So here at the end of turn 2, you can see the situation around Columbia is really nice for the Union. They've got this force of Wilson who is here to shut off Lee. Finish off Buford is the hope there, and Schofield is sitting in a nice defensive position. Remember, the Union don't have to fight here. They're in a good position to do it, but they don't need to. They're just going to try and hold Columbia. Lee was forced into a defensive position behind Little Bigby Creek because of the amount of units that have managed to make their way to Columbia. If all of these guys had taken as long as they normally do, he might be facing only Schofield. And then with the cavalry, he could probably surround him and perhaps get a good blow in. But at this point, he is actually forced into a defensive position, which Schofield would match. He sees no reason to risk anything here. It's no reason to attack across the creek unless he can get a favorable roll. Random event on turn 3, the very first time we see one, is unfortunately rain. Rain will make creeks hard to cross and rivers, minor and major, impassable across fords. You've got to use a bridge. It also slows everyone down big time. So that's one of the things about this game is rain really will take a hit on these wagon trains. The Union will get 1 cav, which they will assign up here to Wilson through manpower placement. It's just one part of the advanced rules. The Union reinforcements still have not arrived. They have big modifiers, so it's not really that surprising. Leader transfer. This is a mistake here. Forrest cannot transfer this far across. He could not make it all the way down here. It doesn't actually affect anything, but he can't make it that far. Confederate reinforcements will see someone come in. 2 sets, which is going to be the rest of Lee's corps. So Clayton and Stevenson have showed up here. They picked a bad time to do it in the rain, and they're already a little bit exhausted as well. They have 1 fatigue. So first initiative comes up. Confederates win it, and that is going to send Forrest and Bell on their way to kind of get into a better position. I forgot through these early turns that they only have a little bit of their movement. I'll correct it in just a second. You'll see. You can see Forrest is trying to come up here, get rid of Capron, and then turn his focus onto Wilson. But very quickly, I'm going to realize that we don't have that much movement. Right there, forgot about rain. So Wilson activates next. He's just moving 1 hex, so he doesn't have to worry about it. But your movement's basically halved. It's not quite halved. It just means that it's more expensive to move across roads. Roads are 1 movement point. It becomes 2 movement points. And then pikes are 1.5. So it basically just halves your movement. So Forrest can't go nearly as far, which is why I say him being able to transfer really doesn't matter because he's going to be stuck in the rain all day. Stevenson will get the next activation, and he gets 2 movement points. So, 3 total, and that's just going to allow him to move 2 hexes. So you can already see how bad this gets. Wilson's going to attempt an assault here. The assault is successful as far as the attempt on it. The U.S. is going to have a +2 ratio for size, and they're going to have a -1 for rain. So 2 against half, and rain is going to give us a +1. Not the best odds to be attacking with, but they really want to put the pressure on Lee while they know they've got him isolated. Everyone in the Union side's already in position to attack here and to force Lee into a bad spot, and they know the Confederates won't get any help this day because of the rain. So a 5 and a 5 would mean it's just going to be a +1 to the Union, which is not enough. Both sides are going to be disorganized. No retreats by anybody, and both sides will be fatigued out for the day. So heavy fighting around Pillow Place as Wilson assaults Buford's positions, but he can't dislodge him, and Lee's rear is secure. Confederates will get to activate next, and they will send Clayton on his way. He gets just a few paces down the road because of the pure mud that is stopping him. We're already seeing a pass from the Confederates. There's just not much they can do. Lee is pretty much moored where he wants to be. He doesn't want Schofield to make any advances. And the other cav, it's just not really worth it to move them, risk losing them. Because if Armstrong moves here, he's going to have to make an extended march roll. And if he fails, he's just going to disappear off the map. Same with Ross. Bell could make another move. But they're just a little bit shy after losing that cav earlier. Stanley's going to activate everybody in his perimeter, so it's going to be Waters, Wood, and the 3 wagon trains. Once again, great positioning by them. They get a 5 movement point, which is going to allow them to slide down, still slowly, down the pike, but not abnormally so. Waters goes next, brings up the rear, and Wood continues his path down the Central Alabama Railroad. Stanley's going to activate Whitaker and Wagner, who are back in his range now. So he's going to activate Whitaker. Wagner's not. Whitaker is going to take a position here alongside Cox and Schofield. So you can already start to see a little bit of a battle line formed across the Little Bigby Creek. It is swollen right now, so they're watching each other warily from their camps, but they don't really have any interest in fighting right now, but a very strong position. Croxton's going to get into move now, and he is just running up here in order to anchor Forrest. So he doesn't want Forrest. He knows he can move and not risk losing a unit. He'll just become disorganized if he fails his extended march roll. So he's just getting right up against Forrest and pinning him down is his basic strategy here. And Stanley is going to activate all of the wagons now for their second move. They're just going to get 3 movement points. Not much, but allows them to continue their path down. A little bit exposed here to Jackson, but once again, the fear is that they lose the unit entirely if they fail their roll. So now Wood's going to continue up. Very poor roll is what it is. Confederates continue to pass back. The Union are just basically sweeping up these last few moves here with Wood and Waters just finishing off the turn, basically. Wagner will make his way along. He is going to sit behind Schofield with the intention of making it here and forming a full line along the Bigby Creek. The Little Bigby Creek, that is. Confederates continue to pass. Capron now will activate. He's going to go up to Mount Pleasant because he thinks the weather might improve. And so he's going to sit up here and in case it does, provide a roadblock for the Confederates. And he's going to recover tomorrow, so he's going to be fresh and raring to go. Confederates pass to the Union. Moore is going to get out of Columbia, and he's going to go across the Duck River and sit over here. The original intention of this was to stop Chalmers from coming back across. So now Chalmers is fully stranded. He cannot make it back across the river. This bridge and this bridge are full up, and with 1 strength point, he's probably not going to dislodge either of these guys. So stop Chalmers from getting back across, and then also give the possibility of throwing everyone across the bridge in Columbia and then blowing this bridge, already having a guy there waiting to blow it. Confederates pass back to the Union. Stewart now can make his, not that important, but still, he can still make his move. And both sides pass, and that's the end of turn 3. I don't think I played through turn 4. Random event is the Union Night March, which is incredibly important here. Union Night March means that the first two activations are automatically won by the Union, and they have a minimum of 3 on their rolls. So that kind of prevents you from having just a really bad start. So they're going to have Stanley and the wagon trains just blitz. And if they get 2 really good rolls, they might can make it across. And if they can, that is maybe the best extradition I've ever seen of the Union across. I didn't play turn 4 yet, but that's what I'm going to do next. I'll probably keep it like this, where I play and then recap. I'll see what you guys think. I kind of went fast through that, but I figured it's better than rambling. I don't know if you guys are that interested in the deep detail. If you ever watch Patrick's videos, they fly through stuff. There's a little bit of editing, but still, they get done with a scenario in like 2.5 hours, and it's quite remarkable. So as you can see here, here's the situation at the end of day 3. And day 3 is the 25th of November. So the 32 turn scenario basically runs to Thanksgiving to Christmas, basically, is what we're looking at here. So really good work by the Union. I mean, they've been helped out a lot by incredible dice rolls and some unfortunate ones for the Confederacy. Rain actually probably helped them more than it hurt them. They got decent rolls for the wagons. They could be a little bit further, and because of their good die rolls early, they didn't need that many good ones now. So that rain actually might have been good for them. It won't be in the future, but this night march could not have come at a better time, especially if they can get maybe some 4s and 5s on 2 rolls. They can blitz their way across the Duck River, and they'll basically be home free. Chalmers might then cause a little bit of an issue because he's fresh with 2 strength, so that's the next problem. They've got Stewart, so he's not quite a match for Chalmers and Rucker, but that is the next thing to worry about. But that's a much better worry to have than being stuck down here with a full core of Confederates between you and Columbia. So it's a really, really good start. Reinforcements do come in. The Union's going to get another cavalry, and it's going to go in here with Capron. So all their cav now, I believe, have 2 strength, which is crazy. Union reinforcements are still nothing. There will be a transfer by Forrest over here just to shore up things along the Waynesboro Pike. So he's going to slide in here and shore that up. And then John Bell Hood is going to show up with Chetham's entire corps. So they're going to show up over here, Hood and Chetham's corps, and then Loring, who is the beginning of Stewart's corps, is going to show up down here. So they're going to now start running in. So this is a lot more units. It's still not as much as the Union have, 8, 5, and 7 for Claiborne, Brown, and Bate. And Stewart sitting down here with 8 on Loring. But it's still, I mean, more than they've got in the field right now combined. Almost 81 of these units would do that. So Johnson's back to full strength, or back to full health. His units are ready to go. But so are the Union. So from this point, I could definitely see Wagner wheeling his way around and saying, hey, Wilson can't pin down for this full flank, but Wagner most certainly can. Wagner may try and come around, knock Forrest out of Pillow Place, and then try and wipe Lee off the board before the reinforcements can get there. This first initiative is going to be huge because Wilson now actually wants to get out of there. He's looking at Forrest with half a strength point, so he's going to get a bonus, but then he's going to lose a point for the Forrest being there. He doesn't really, he knows now he can't pin that unit, so there's no real reason. He doesn't want to expose himself to a mistake and lose a strength point or something. So he's going to try and move, either stay where he is or move and continue to clog things up. But Capron being back at 2 is really nice. And in fact, Wilson may even leader transfer to Capron. It's probably what I should have done. And then down here, Waters and Wood will continue bringing up the rear for the wagon trains. And this situation could look very different. If they roll 2 1s and they only get to move 4, they're obviously, I see 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. I mean, worst case, Stanley's in Columbia. So even at the worst possible roll, they're still in a pretty good spot. Jackson is feeling a little nippy, though, and he may try and strike out. So, you never know, but I'm hoping that they'll be able to get across the Duck River. So, once again, big picture. Chalmers stranded north of the Duck. The wagon trains are in a really good spot, and the Union may be able to really getting a good spot here with the eye towards offensive action south of the duck, which is really remarkable. Maybe biting off more than I can chew, but I've got everybody set up really nicely right now where I feel like Lee might be vulnerable. So let me know what you think about this format. We'll see how it comes out, but this is like an after-action report running you through. And basically, it's more of a strategy guide than anything else. Not telling you what the best thing to do is, but showing you possibilities. I find when I don't record my games, incredible things happen, and when I do record them, terrible things happen. So it's a very boring game. So this was one that I knew I had to get on camera because it's so interesting. And having just watched Patrick's videos on his campaign, he does 2 of these. He does a one, and then they do a rematch with him and his partner who play all the time. Having seen that, I knew I had to record this. So let me know what you think. For those of you that have experience with this game, how have I handled it for both sides? I've probably been too timid with the Confederates, but losing that cav early on to the extended march roll just really took the wind out of my sails, and I was really nervous about losing a large contingent of the cav. So I'm kind of thinking long game here. If we can't get the wagons, I don't feel like we're going to win and lose off the wagons. It's more important about catching them somewhere else. So I didn't want to be cavless halfway through this game. So let me know what you think, both sides, offensively and defensively. And let me know what you think about those die rolls, because Schofield rolling 7 2 times in a row and the wagon train's moving along, I think is pretty darn good. So thanks for watching as always. I hope you've enjoyed this new format. It's good to see you once again, and I'll try and keep pumping out content for you guys. 900 subscribers, what we're sitting at right now. So we're 100 away from 1,000, which would be really big for me. So if you're not already subscribed, make sure to hit the subscribe button. Liking is always nice as well, but really want to see that subscribe from everybody watching. So take care of yourselves. We'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.